The Subiaco Post has had a great time over the last few months publishing a number of articles and letters critical of the shared path along Eric Street down to Cottesloe Beach. Well, let's just have a closer look at this article and what they are talking about. Now, in this article, it mentions that the residents have set up a website where you can sign up for more news about the terrible things that council are going to do. And I went and had a look at this website they've set up, and it says they want to reject the Eric Street bike e-scooter shared path. And it says the town of Cottesloe is proposing to dig up most of the southern Eric Street private driveways in September. Okay, firstly, they're not private driveways. They are crossovers between your property boundary and the road. They're not private driveways. And council makes it very clear they're public land, and just because you've got a crossover on it doesn't imply ownership. And they're going to install a large 3-metre shared bike e-scooter shared path without properly engaging with its residents. We're going to have a look at a sec at how much of an imposition 3 metres of concrete is going to make through the verges. After Eric Street, the project is slated to extend to half a dozen other streets, costing millions to tens of millions of dollars. Well, given this one's costing under $1 million, yeah, let's assume they're going to cost $1 million each. That's $6 million. But I think what they need to recognise is most of that funding won't come from council. It's going to come from state government. In this path, I think the council chucked in a couple $100,000 and the state government put in the rest. Now, one thing the residents are complaining about is this path is going to be 3 metres wide. It's going to be made out of concrete. And I did make a mistake in an earlier video thinking it was asphalt. No, it's concrete, and it's going to be red. And so they're saying it's going to be ugly and a huge imposition on their verges. Well, let's go to the 85% plans and have a look at how much of an imposition it's going to be. And we can see here that this part in orange is where the council is going to have to modify the crossovers to make sure that the slope is fine. And you can see that they have in fact called these things crossovers, not driveways. But let's have a look at the width of some of these driveways, and you can see they're complaining about a 3-metre wide path, but some of these driveways are clearly up to 3 metres wide or even wider. And in fact, if we just mark up the area of concrete taken up by some of these larger crossovers, you can see that residents actually have a massive amount of concrete or tarmac dumped on the verge already so that they can get their cars onto their property or they can park them outside. And if we look at lot 52, for example, there's probably more concrete there taken up by their crossover and their parking out the front than there is by the driveway. Lots 18, 19 and 20 also have some very substantial chunks of concrete out the front. In fact, I'd say they have a lot more concrete than grass. So, when some of these residents are going, oh my God, we're putting a 3-metre wide pile of concrete down at the front, that's the end of the world, it's terrible. Sorry, you've already destroyed your verges with concrete. If you're that worried about not having a view, not having grass out the front, all that concrete, how about we rip up your concrete crossovers and replace them with grass? No, we're not going to do that, obviously, because what they're essentially saying is the most important thing here is getting their cars in and out or parking their cars. They don't really care about the verge at all, and they certainly don't think concrete is ugly because they've splashed it around all over the place. So let's just bin that argument, please. Now, the last line in this online thing says they want to stop this because it will change the nature of the whole town of Cottesloe. Well, I'm actually really pleased to see that they think that just putting in a shared path can completely change the nature of an entire council area. I mean, that makes it an incredibly powerful tool. But how would it change it? Well, I guess it would mean less traffic, which means less congestion, less parking, less road noise, car noise, less air pollution. It means people have an opportunity to get out and exercise, so it improves the fitness and the health of the area. It tackles obesity. We know exercise and getting out in the sun is really good for fighting depression. If you reduce obesity, then you reduce the load on hospitals with people with things like diabetes and pre-diabetes and heart problems and liver issues and all those comorbidities which go with obesity. It can provide social connection and community. It gives you family time. It gets kids off the devices. Essentially, it turns miserable people into happy people, and it gets people out of hospital, and it stops people from dying, and it makes it a much more pleasant place to live. And for some reason, these people want to stop that because I don't know. I feel like I'm in, Monty Python's Life of Brian. It's like, what have the Romans ever done for us? Apart from, tackling obesity and making it not quieter and making it a more enjoyable place and possibly increasing property values. What have the shared paths ever done for us? We need to, band together and kick these, stop these things from happening. Quite an amazing viewpoint, really. The Subiaco Post seems to have found a cafe owner that's not happy with a shared path going past their business. And I did mess up the first video where I said the path was going to go straight down the road there. That's wrong. It's going to cut through this car park. It helps if you actually go and look at the plans properly. And you can see there's lots of car parking over on the right. And what they're going to do is directly in front of us, they're going to remove half a dozen parking spots out the front of these businesses. Now, I've come here quite a few times to have a look at this, and this was a cafe that I wanted to have a look at in terms of what the bicycle parking's like, and there are no bike racks here. That's the first thing I discovered. Second thing is they're only open from 6 in the morning till noon, and just about every time I came down here was after that, so I missed out. But oh, look at that. People are already showing up here on bicycles and tricycles and just parking them wherever because there's nowhere to lock your bike up, which is a bit of a problem. But I really do wonder about the mindset of people that think all their customers turn up in a car and without car parking right outside their front door, they're going to have problems. Because I used to come down here and run and swim on the beach all the time when I was at uni, and our prime aim was to come to the beach. So therefore we wanted to park near the beach as close as possible. And then we'd, run up to Swanbourne and back and then swim and body surf and have a shower and then look around for, a food or coffee if, afterwards. And the idea that, people aren't going to walk a short distance after they've been for a run on the beach or a swim to get a coffee just seems to be a little bit bizarre to me. And, there's a lot more people drinking coffee there than there are parking spots out the front. But I did see this council worker digging a hole the other day to put a sign in, and the sign was saying this is actually a federally funded infrastructure project. So I got that wrong as well. It's not state government money, it's federal. And possibly the reason council wants to push ahead with this is the Albanese government has said they're going to be reviewing a lot of the infrastructure projects funded by the Morrison government, which means they might be scrapping a lot. And so therefore it's probably a good idea to spend the money before the feds take it away, which might be why they're pushing ahead with doing this now rather than losing it forever. But look, I think there's plenty of places around Perth which very clearly demonstrate that if you've got a coffee business on a shared path, it's pretty much a license almost to print money. And this one over at the Mount Henry Bridge, I think, is a classic example where this guy sets up his coffee truck every single day and gets lots of passing traffic, people walking their dogs, out with the kids, pushing prams. This one over in Leederville, you can see kids' bikes and trailers. Clearly plenty of people turning up. Dome, that's on another path around an Applecross. Mount Street tends to get all the fit people that want to go doing laps of Mount Street. Here, Claremont train station, we've got some speedy people on bikes. We've got someone turning up on a three-wheeled electric scooter thing. And then Claysbrook over in East Perth, I think, is possibly the ultimate example. I really think if the owner's concerned, you should come over here on a sunny weekend and just see how much money comes pouring into these businesses from people showing up on bicycles. And I'd be looking at the shared path as a really big opportunity to make some money. Now, safety is the other thing, and road safety audits have become the flavour of the month these days for trying to get bike infrastructure blocked in Sydney in particular. And I think a lot of it comes from people that have actually never read the Austroads Guide to Managing Road Safety Audits, and in particular, the updated version, which came out earlier this year. And I mean, one of the new things in the latest guide is thematic audits, where they talk about jumping on a bike to gain the perspective and eye height of a rider. And I do think that's absolutely critical. And, when we went and did a road safety audit of the West Connects project, for instance, with the project safety manager and one of the project managers and Bicycle New South Wales and the people from Bay Bug and the Inner West Bug. It was really amazing what an eye-opener it was for the project safety manager and the project manager to see a lot of the issues we were trying to raise from a bicycle. And we went out with them for a couple of hours on a weekend, and it completely changed their perspective on the problems that we were raising. And they then went and remediated a lot of them. It was quite excellent. Now, that car parked on the verge there, I think that is symptomatic of why some people don't want the shared path, and that's because they're used to having this free council-provided parking out the front of their houses. And if you look closely at some of the verges, you'll see they're very brown and bare and barren because they've constantly got vehicles parked on them. Some of these verges are absolutely amazing. They're like out of Asterix and Obelix in Britain, if you remember that comic. The most beautiful manicured Wimbledon tennis court verges you can imagine. They're absolutely immaculate. And then there's some which are just absolute rubbish tips. It's to say that all the verges along here are stunning examples of gardening prowess is completely wrong. Some of them are examples of how to grow weeds in an industrial scale. But just going along here, I hope as a reasonably fit adult confident cyclist, I can see plenty of problems with the on-road arrangements as they are today. And the main problem, of course, is the magic paint, and the second thing is the roundabouts. And so I look at a shared path which doesn't use magic paint. It's over on the verge, and provides bypasses for the roundabouts as being a huge improvement. Now, a really critical thing with audits is you need to understand that the findings do not have to be accepted by the project managers and the engineers, because they might just say, we don't have enough money to fix that, or the terrain just does not allow us to do something about that. And a classic example, I think, here is where these ramps are going to be removed on this pinch point, which I think is not a good idea. But I'm showing you how you can actually get around that if you know what you're doing and you know how to cross a driveway lip at the correct angle. There are ways around these things. Now, this is just actually riding the route as it will. As it'll be laid out, which I think is also important for an auditor to do, is not just ride on the road, but actually get out and ride where the path is going to do, which I'm demonstrating you can quite easily do on a mountain bike. But just have a look at this huge expanse of concrete here on this crossover, all built on council land to provide the homeowner here with some and the ability to get their car in and out of their property, and also park some out the front. And you can see there's just no shortage of concrete to cross over as we go along. And look, obviously, some owners are going to be unhappy because for a couple of days the crossover is going to be blocked, whilst the old one is probably jackhammered up and adjusted to get the right gradient, etc., for a path crossing it. And nobody's happy with that kind of thing, but I did notice there's quite a bit of shiny new concrete along here. So I guess some of these homeowners have in fact had these crossovers renewed at some point. You've got to say, well, what did you do when your crossover was being replaced? Oh, we just parked around the corner. Well, why can't you do that now? Oh, end of the world. But it's really interesting the thinking that you get. They don't mind making a bit of sacrifice when it's for their own private benefit, but when putting a shared path through, which will be good for all those reasons I listed earlier, like reduction in congestion and traffic noise and air pollution and the health benefits of exercise and reducing obesity and people over here have been whinging about the decrepit state of the hospital system. Well, part of that, it's not the hospital system's decrepit, it's because we've got so many decrepit, obese people filling up, the capacity we've got there at the moment. If we had people like these two out doing some exercise, the hospital system wouldn't be under so much strain. Now, to me, the ultimate road safety audit is having a look at the people that end up using the infrastructure. And these two, for me, are a classic example. No helmets. They feel comfortable enough and safe enough to be riding along the principal shared path down to Forest Street and then down to the beach. That, to me, is a really big sign of success. If you see people like this, kids in trailers, little kids on bikes, people on tricycles, the elderly on gophers, cargo bikes, all that kind of thing, people riding around with their, dogs in baskets. That, to me, says that, people are really comfortable with the infrastructure because they think it is really safe. So if you don't see these sorts of people out there using the infrastructure, then it really is time to have a rethink about what you've built and how you can improve it to make sure these people will come and use it. And then you can do another audit, I guess, to find out what the problems are. But I don't think you'll ever find every problem in advance. That's for sure. I do think it's a good idea to do an audit in advance. That's for sure, to pick up as many issues as possible. But if you're not seeing cargo bikes and kids and stuff like that, it's definitely time to do another audit and think about what you can fix.